I had been working late that night. The kind of day where you look at the clock and realize you're the last one in the office, still hunched over a pile of reports. I didn't mind it at first. Some people work better when they're alone, but by the time 9 p.m. rolled around, I was done. I closed my laptop, grabbed my bag, and stepped out into the crisp night air, exhausted but ready to get home and unwind. My apartment wasn't far from work, so I arrived around 9:30. It was a quiet night as usual, nothing out of the ordinary. My building was older, a bit worn around the edges, but it had a certain charm. The neighbors were nice, if a little distant, and most of the time, the only sounds I heard were the usual city noises, the faint hum of traffic, the occasional car alarm or a siren in the distance. I went upstairs, opened my door, and set my things down in the hallway. As soon as I entered my apartment, the first thing I noticed was how still it was. The lights were off, and the place was eerily quiet. I had gotten so used to the background noise from the city, and right then, it felt like everything had gone completely silent. I shrugged it off, as I usually did when I walked in after a long day. I flicked the light switch by the door and headed to the kitchen to grab something to eat. My feet dragged as I moved through the hallway, tired and just wanting to collapse on the couch. That's when I noticed it. The door to my bedroom was slightly ajar. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe I'd left it open when I rushed out that morning. But something about it felt off, like the door had been opened just a little more than I would have left it. My stomach tightened, but I dismissed it as my mind playing tricks on me after a long, stressful day. I walked toward my bedroom and pushed the door open fully. I paused at the threshold for a moment, scanning the room. Nothing seemed out of place. My bed was where I'd left it, the window was shut, and all my belongings were still in their usual spots. But the silence felt unnerving. I crossed the room to grab my phone off the nightstand, and that's when I heard it. A faint, subtle rustling sound, like something shifting beneath the bed. I froze. For a split second, I convinced myself it was just the house settling. It had to be. I had lived there for months, and the place was old. The floorboards creaked, the walls groaned, and sometimes you'd hear things that made no sense. But the sound wasn't like the usual creaks. This was deliberate. Someone or something was moving underneath the bed. My heart started pounding in my chest, and every instinct in me told me to run, to leave the apartment and call the police. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there in the doorway of my bedroom, frozen. The noise continued, low but distinct. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe an animal had gotten in, or there was something caught under the bed, like a sock or a book. I slowly stepped into the room and turned toward the bed, trying to look casual, like nothing was wrong. I moved to the edge, my heart hammering in my throat, and knelt down to glance under the bed. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, tucked in the shadows, I saw the movement again. A pair of eyes, barely visible in the dim light, reflecting the faint glow from the streetlights outside the window. I didn't recognize the face, but I didn't need to. There was a man, hiding under my bed. I couldn't process it. My body went numb as the realization hit me. There was a stranger under my bed. My mind raced, and panic surged through me. I took a step back, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. He didn't move. He didn't make a sound. For a long, terrifying moment, neither of us moved, caught in the shock of the discovery. Then, the man shifted, as if he realized I'd seen him. He made a quiet, slow motion to get out, and I instinctively backed away toward the door. I had no plan. I didn't know what to do. "Stay back," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. It wasn't threatening, but it was cold, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I had no idea how long he'd been there or how he got in. I could feel the adrenaline racing through my veins, making my hands shake uncontrollably as I backed into the hallway. I don't know why I didn't just run for the door or scream, but I didn't. The fight or flight response kicked in late, and I just froze. The man didn't move toward me. He stayed under the bed for a moment longer. Then finally, like he had made up his mind, he crawled out slowly, inching toward the foot of the bed. I could see his face now, scruffy, unshaven, gaunt. His eyes were wild, and his movements were jerky, like he wasn't quite sure what he was doing either. I don't know how long we stood there in that moment, neither of us speaking. But then I did what I should have done in the first place. I ran. I sprinted out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the parking lot. I didn't stop running until I reached a neighbor's apartment, where I knocked on the door, almost hysterical. The neighbor called the police, and I waited there, unable to process what had just happened. When the officers arrived, I showed them my apartment, but by the time they got there, the man was gone. They searched the apartment but found no signs of forced entry. He must have been able to slip in when I was out earlier in the day, somehow unnoticed. The police told me he'd likely been hiding under the bed for hours, maybe longer. They never found him. The officers told me he probably slipped away before they could get there. I've had the locks changed, but that feeling, the one that gnaws at your gut, hasn't gone away. I can't shake the thought of someone being so close to me for so long without me knowing. I still don't know how he got in or why he chose that moment to reveal himself, but I've never felt safe in my apartment again. Every creak in the floorboards, every little shift in the shadows, makes my skin crawl now. I still live there, but now I always check under the bed before I sit down, just in case.